Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 153, Meno 99d to E. In this last argument of the dialogue, Socrates is developing the claim that good politicians lack understanding, episteme, and Meno agrees with him. We should remember why this is the case. Meno is convinced that when teaching is involved, episteme is passed from the teacher to the pupil. If arete, virtue, is something teachable, it must therefore be some sort of episteme. This is all according to Meno's opinions, not Socrates, not Plato's, but Meno's. Beneficial politicians, by being beneficial, must have arete. But it has been shown in various arguments that politicians are incapable of teaching their arete to other people, in particular their sons. Therefore, it has been concluded that arete cannot be episteme, because otherwise the politicians would have taught arete to their children. Therefore, good, beneficial politicians do have arete, of course, but they do not have episteme. Now, Socrates has made it sound as though politicians lack all sense, all episteme, but really, according to the strict argument, it is only where arete is concerned that they definitely don't have that type of episteme, an understanding of virtue. Episteme had been portrayed as one of the guides to behavior, but in parallel, Socrates had set up an alternative, which is doxa, and not just any old doxa, any opinion, but orthodoxa, correct opinion, or alethes doxa, true opinion. Socrates has been developing the idea, therefore, that good, beneficial politicians have no episteme when it comes to arete, but they do have correct or true opinion, which is supposed to be guiding them. However, in this argument, he began almost immediately to pervert the notion that somehow correct or true opinion is in the beneficial politicians guiding them, but in fact there is something else at play. He immediately changes true or correct opinion to eudoxia, which is good opinion in other people towards the good politicians. In other words, the beneficial politicians themselves don't know what they're doing, and they aren't actually guided by any good opinion, but they appear to be beneficial to other people. They have the good opinion of their audience. Presumably, since Meno didn't react to this change in the use of opinion in the argument, Socrates compared politicians with prophets and seers, and suggested that in fact beneficial politicians are inspired by a god. There is a god in them, in that they are possessed by a god. There is an obvious problem with this, that a god should not really be considered to have doxa, an opinion, but rather episteme, knowledge or understanding. And if it is the case that a god possesses the beneficial politicians, they are being guided by episteme and not by true opinion. Even this hasn't troubled Meno. He's quite happy with the argument as it is. So Socrates tries yet again. Kai haige gunaikes depu o Menon, tus agathus andras theus kalusi. And indeed, Meno, women call good men divine. This might appear to follow from the claim that good politicians are possessed by a god, but in fact it is more of an expression of eudoxia, when the women are impressed and have a good opinion of these politicians, they call them divine. This is simply the women expressing how much they like the politicians. It has nothing to do with the politicians being possessed by a god. Kai hoi lakones hotantina in komiadzos in agathonandra, theos aner facin hutos. And whenever the Spartans praise a good man, they say, a divine man this. Socrates uses women and now Spartan men to show that good men are called divine by certain sectors of the community. This superficially appears to follow on from the notion that good politicians are possessed by gods, but in fact it follows from eudoxia, the idea that good politicians are only good, they appear to be good, because of the good opinion of people who think that the politicians are good. Why does Socrates need two examples to make this point? Possibly this is just to universalize, at least speciously, the notion that good men are called divine. It isn't necessarily the case that this is universal, but it does look like it if women and Spartan men do the same thing. At the same time, it's unlikely that women and Spartan men call good men divine for the same reason. Women may be taken in by the handsomeness of the man, his physique, and call him divine because he looks like a god, while a Spartan man might be impressed by the man's morality or his fighting spirit, something like that, and for that reason calls the man divine. This sort of distinction, however, would be lost on Meno, and it is more likely that Socrates mentioned women first, because that is a very common occurrence, apparently, that women would say good-looking men are divine. But he then adds the Spartans, whom he actually quotes, indicating that probably he quotes them in the Doric dialect, in which case what we have in the Greek text in Burnet is wrong. Instead of the Attic word for divine, theos, we should have the Doric word theos. This trivial point would entertain Meno no end. At least Meno does seem to be satisfied by what Socrates says. Kai phainon taigel Socrates orthos legen, kai toi issos Anytus hode soi achthetai legonti. And they appear, Socrates, to speak correctly. But perhaps this Anytus is upset at you speaking. Meno not only agrees that women and Spartan men say that good men are divine, but he appears to agree with them because he says that they appear to be speaking correctly. And yet he understands that Anytus, this Anytus, who apparently is here, sitting near them and listening to what Socrates and Meno are saying, this Anytus is upset at Socrates speaking at all, even though Meno agrees with what Socrates says the women and Spartan men say. What Socrates seems to have done, therefore, is to set up a dissonance between opinions which Meno would agree with, while Meno knows that these very same opinions which he agrees with are not agreed to by Anytus. This, therefore, seems to be the case for all of the conversation since Anytus left the conversation. It now appears that Anytus has been sitting nearby, I presume he's been sitting, listening to the conversation, although he hasn't participated in it. But it is clear to Meno that Anytus is not very happy hearing that politicians have no episteme, that they have no idea what they are doing, and that they simply do what they do because of some sort of opinion. If Socrates has been deliberately antagonizing Anytus simply in order to create this dissonance in Meno, with a view to getting Meno to begin thinking dialectically, this shows how serious Socrates is about dialectic, and this also indicates what he's been trying to do throughout the whole dialogue. He has been trying to get Meno to think dialectically, and it is for Meno's sake that Socrates talked to Meno's slave and to Anytus, Meno's xenos, or host. Socrates isn't concerned about Anytus. Uden mele emoige, tutomen omenon kai authis dialexometha. It doesn't matter to me at all. I'll converse with this man, Meno, also in the future. Socrates is saying that he will have a dialogos with Anytus in the future, and in fact he will have another encounter with Anytus in his trial, where Anytus is one of his prosecutors. Plato then has used this fictional conversation to portray Socrates as a serious dialectician who is prepared to pay the price for trying to help someone think dialectically.